Today is, I think, the funnest video. If you're ready to go beyond the expected, shake things up a little bit, walk on the wild side a little bit with me, then this is the video for you. But first, if you're new here, I am Erin. I'm one half of the dynamic duo here at ePapere. We are all about junk journaling, paper crafting, mixed media, thrifty and vintage treasure hunting, and making sure that you have all of the best tips, tricks, tutorials, supplies, and tools for your own crafty journey. If that sounds like your jam, come along with us. Join our community. Subscribe to the channel. All right, back to color theory. Hi everybody, it's Erin from ePapere, and I am back with our, what are we on, fourth video? of color theory for junk journaling, paper crafting, mixed media art, pretty much anything, to be honest, but I'm trying to kind of narrow it down to, paper craft, what we're all about here. So I'm going to be doing a lot of demonstrating with my watercolors today, and the reason for that is just it's way more efficient than me going through my entire paper stash trying to find examples for all of the guidelines. I've got 10 guidelines, okay? So a lot of demoing with the watercolors today, and then we'll make a project using one of the guidelines that I have, which I think is going to be a fun game. So, all right, guideline number 1, balance the temperature. So remember that when we look at our color wheel, let me find, here we go, this one, these two aside. When we look at our color wheel, we know that colors have temperature, and pretty much goes like this, like, there we go. Like this side of the color wheel is warm, and that side of the color wheel is cool. Okay. Basically, if you didn't want to use one of the established color theories, as long as you balance kind of warm and cool, things could work. So one of my favorite color combinations is actually yellow and gray. And this works really well because we've got yellow, which is a very warm color. And then we've got gray. I'm going to thin some black down here. And then we've got gray, which is a, it's a neutral, but it can read a little bit cooler. Okay. So that's a really nice one. Another great example I have of this, we bought a house at one point, and it had a bunch of golden oak trim in it, just everywhere. Everywhere in this house was golden oak trim. Yeah, maybe more of this color. Golden oak trim. Is that the color I used? Golden, oh, there we go. Maybe something more along that line. Golden oak trim. There we go. And the people we bought it from had painted everything in shades of brown and, reds and rusts and more of this kind of ochre color. And for me, it was just all way too much. So when we moved in order to balance everything out, what I did was I got rid of all of those wall colors, and I had this golden oak color, and then I used a lot of very, very soft grays and kind of sea glass greens, a little bit of cyan, just very, very soft in there. And I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And that balanced everything out, and it gave us just a much more balanced feeling and energy in the house. And then what I did was found that kind of mustardy gold color in some fabrics and brought that back in to balance. So balancing warm and cool, and just making sure that you've got that. So that is guideline number 1. Balance your warm and cool, no matter which colors you're choosing. Number 2, you can choose a double analogous color scheme. So when we were going through the color harmonies, I told you that my favorites to work with are the analogous color schemes. But if you wanted to kick this up, you could combine 2 color harmony concepts together. So meaning, if I wanted to work with, say, complementary colors, but I wanted to expand my variety a little bit, I could say, I'm going to work with, you know, these 3, this magenta, red, magenta, and red, and then green, cyan, green, and cyan. So 3 colors analogous down here, and their complement, 3 colors analogous up here. So that creates another much more variety, much more exciting, but it still has the pleasing, harmonious feeling of those analogous colors. So that would be number 2. Number 3, leveraging the alternative neutrals. So I have named 3 here: navy, browns, and olives. We haven't really utilized these yet. So, and the way that I like to use these is, if you are one who really loves working in neutrals, consider adding some excitement to your neutral color palette by incorporating one of the alt neutrals. So, you know, leveraging your whites, creams, and grays, but then, and browns. We see a lot of browns as a neutral, but then kicking it up, with olives or navies. Sometimes there's even some shades of orange that I would consider a neutral because they're kind of an orangey or brown. But you could, you know, like that dark rusty orangey color can sometimes work as a neutral as well. So kicking up a neutral color palette by mixing in some of these alternative neutrals, it still reads as neutral. You can also use these as a neutral color along with one of these other colors, 1 or 2 of these other colors. So, you know, if I wanted to, let's use complementary colors again because that's easy. So let's go violet and yellow green. Why not? So we've got a yellow green here. And we've got a violet color here. All right, let's see what a navy would look like. See if I can find a navy here. Good one. So navy might work as a really nice neutral. to go with those instead of, you know, the tried and true black. But you could also, let's try the same. We've got our yellow green. We've got our violet. And let's choose a brown this time. I'm going to choose that kind of rustier brown like I was talking about. Let's see how that looks. And that's interesting. Let's choose a different brown. This one's a cooler one. And then this one is sure to work, and here's why. The olive is already a yellow-green. So consider what colors the alt neutrals actually are when choosing which one to incorporate into a color palette. So an olive green already just gonna mix a good one here. Olive green is already a yellow green. So that's already part of that color palette without even trying. So yeah, that's how all of the alt neutrals could potentially work into one of the color harmonies as a neutral to go along with it. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside. All right, find the mud in between. You okay, Chico? You okay? All right. Find the mud in between. I'm going to grab another piece of paper here. And what I mean by this is I'm using two colors that I don't know if they go together or not. Okay. And I don't know how they might relate to each other. So I'm grabbing this yellow. And let's go back to purple, because yellow and purple notoriously kind of can be tricky. They look pretty together. But there's a lot of contrast there. So how do you bring these two together? So one way you could choose to do that is taking, and this is where watercolors and stuff can be helpful, is you take that yellow and you add a little bit of purple to it, and you find out what color mud that makes. There is nothing wrong with the mud we're making. So we've got a muddy color now. That is a more muted, it's a more muted purple, but it's kind of pretty, and it's brought a whole nother dimension into this color palette, and it's brought these colors together. So you know, that is something that you could try, because you might be able to find this color in some fabric or in a print on the paper. You might be able to, you know, use your watercolors or your distress inks or what have you to create this color in different ways to add to your project, to bring that otherwise very, very dynamic color pairing together. Dynamic, I keep using that word. It's my word of the night. Dynamic color palette together. So it's bridging the two by finding the mud in between. Okay. Switch out the metallics that you're used to for something different. So let's talk about this. So typically we see possibly like with certain colors. You know, what might you typically put with a teal color like this? Well, what I see most of the time is, you know, maybe silvers. Let's see if that'll, I might see silver. But what if I were to switch that out and do something different? What if I were to put gold with it, or copper? We get very different looks with those. I mean, you could even go with colored metallics, but I'm kind of saying this in the sense of the traditional metallics. So, you know, consider switching it up from what you would typically see paired with a particular color or what you would have done in the past. So switching it up that way. Try the unexpected by doing Color Roulette. So I'm gonna do this at the end to do a project. This is the game I'm gonna play. Color Roulette basically being, you know, pick a number 1 through 12, and that's the color on the wheel that you're going to use, and then pick a second number, and that's the second color that you're going to use, and you got to find a way to make them work together. So we're going to play that at the end. Repetition, repetition, repetition. So if we're going to make something work, it's got to appear more than once in a project, whether that's in a single piece or whether that's, you know, across the entire project that you're working on, like multiple places in a journal or within a single tag or page spread. But if you're going to bring in a color that might not be traditionally a part of the palette that you're using, the best way to make it feel like it belongs is to repeat it. And it doesn't have to be the same. Like if I'm going to use this bright orange, I want to repeat that orange, but I can also pull in a brown orange. I can also pull in a peachy, light peachy color, or even the shade of that orange as well. But you just want to make sure that you're repeating this throughout the project to make sure that that color is grounded and that it is established as a true member of the color palette rather than just kind of coming out of left field. Okay. Variation on a theme. So if we want to work with a tried and true color palette, one that, well, I'm American, and one that we're familiar with is the good old red, white, and blue. Okay. Very classic color palette. It's a theme we see often. We see it in branding all the time. So this one we know works just because our eyes are used to seeing this. But what if I want to I want to kick this up. I want to change it up a little bit. What could I do? I can take shades, tints, and tones to jazz this up. So what can I do? Okay, well, I can do a pink with that red instead of the true red. Let's put some white in there just to... So now we're looking at kind of like a strawberry pink color with that blue. That might be kind of fun. Can still use that blue. And well, I use the tint of one. Let's do the shade of the next one. Let's see here. There's some black over here. I'm going to grab that blue. And that's the shade of blue, of that blue, along with white. I could switch the white out for more of a cream color maybe. Let's grab this one in my metallic palette so I don't have to mix cream. So there we go. So now I've got a whole new color palette based on a traditional theme that we were used to seeing. This would have been the same old. It's fine. People use it all the time. It's great. We're used to seeing it. But if we wanted to kick it up a notch, we could do some changes, switch out a couple of elements, or switch out all of the elements, just tweak it. Pull this lever, push that lever, and make something new from something tried and true. Okay, the next one is flip the proportions. So I think a lot of us in our brains naturally put the neutrals kind of in the background and make that our biggest proportion of color. You know, everything is on a background of neutral, right? Or it seems to be that way. And then we tend to use more of a little pop of color. What you could try instead is actually, and I'm going to grab some paper here because that will better demonstrate. So give me just a second. This is what I mean. Now we've got this beautiful paper is now a field of this beautiful, rich, deep magenta shade. And now I can pop that with a neutral, or, you know, a different color versus having a pop of that color on the other thing. Now, this doesn't need to make up the entire, you know, an entire journal this way, although that would be really beautiful, really beautiful. But, you know, switch things up a little bit here and there, flip that proportion on its head. You know, make the bright color the field and pop it with the neutral instead of the other way around. So try that. All right, next. When all else fails, go with your gut and go with what you like. And this was one when I asked Mom, you know, if she had any tips to share from her perspective. She says, I don't know. I just always go with what I think looks good together. And I think that's honestly a great tip. The more you work with color, the more you practice with the color harmonies we worked with in the last video, the more you practice with the guidelines that I've given you in this video, the more your intuition with using color is going to strengthen, and the better practiced you will be. And at some point, you're going to just feel and know what works together, and you're going to become more and more confident. So the best advice that I can give to you is to keep practicing. Try different things, experiment, okay? So with that, let's play a game of color roulette, okay? All right. Closing my eyes. Let's see. I'm just flipping the paper around so I don't know which way it's going. All right. And I'm closing my eyes and I'm going to pick color red magenta. So I'm going to write down red magenta. All right, closing my eyes, gonna flip the paper around again. All right, and I'm gonna take, hopefully it's not red magenta again. Green. Well, that's too easy. They're complements. They're almost complements. Okay, no, they're not quite though. And green. Okay. So I'm going to find a way to make those two work together. The easiest thing, because red magenta, you could make a split complementary with cyan, green, and red magenta. So that would be the easiest thing to do. So I might kind of start with that as a baseline and then see where else I go with it and see if I want to use any of these other guidelines to maybe make some changes and kick things up. So, all right, stay tuned. We'll make a project. Okay, everybody, this is the tag that I made. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. That would really be awesome. Consider subscribing to the channel, and we will see you soon.